following stark reality. The multifarious machinations of the tyrannical Trudeau administration, in the aggregate, represent the stealthy New World Order blueprint for the entire world community of nations. In other words, as Canada is overtly taken over by the NWO perpetrators, so, too, will all countries be vulnerable to the same national sovereignty-destroying plots. The perfect political NWO marriage between a covert communist and a furtive fascist. How Canada was conquered first. The NWO globalist cabal used international criminal and Rothschild bagman George Soros to bankroll the stolen elections of Justin Trudeau 3 times. Then, the cabal forced a political marriage between Justin Trudeau, a closet communist, and Chrystia Freeland, a closet Nazi. Not only is Freeland the unelected Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, she's also Minister of Finance. Really, how does one woman, ICSIS agent journalist, hold 2 of the most powerful positions in their Canadian government? Freeland received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Russian history and literature from Harvard University. During her time at Harvard, she visited the Soviet Union as an exchange student to study Ukrainian, although she was already fluent in the language. While she attracted the attention of the KGB, which tagged her with the codename Frida, and Soviet newspapers, attacked her as a foreigner meddling in their internal affairs over her contacts with Ukrainian activists. The KGB surveilled Freeland and tapped her phone calls, and documented the young Canadian activist delivering money, video and audio recording equipment, and a personal computer to contacts in Ukraine. She used a diplomat at the Canadian Embassy in Moscow to send material abroad in a secret diplomatic pouch, worked with foreign journalists on stories about life in the Soviet Union, and organized marches and rallies to attract attention and support from Western countries. On her return from a trip to London in March 1989, Freeland was denied re-entry to the USSR. By the time her activism within Ukraine came to an end, Freeland had become the subject of a high-level case study from their KGB on how much damage a single determined individual could inflict on the Soviet Union. What's the critical point? Canada is being used as the NWO model for the hybrid totalitarian government structure planned for every country on Earth. That devastating governmental hybrid combines the worst of communism with the worst of fascism. In Canada, the globalist cabal quite cunningly put lipstick on the pig, as we see with pretty boy Trudeau and pretty girl Freeland respectively. It's now clear that Freeland was quite purposefully installed by her XIS masters after she was trained and mentored to function as a rabid Russophobe at the highest levels of the Canadian government. Even today, none are more virulent haters of Russia than Ukrainian Nazis, who have been acculturated over many decades to despise all things Russian. Freeland's maternal grandfather, Michael Chomiak, Ukrainian, Mikhailo Chomiak, had been a journalist before World War II. During the war in Nazi-occupied Poland and later in Nazi-occupied Austria, he was chief editor of the Ukrainian anti-Semitic daily newspaper Krakowskie Wieści, News of Krakow, for the Nazi regime. With her classic XIS agent bio, is it any wonder that Canada has morphed into an uncharacteristically bellicose country that eagerly supports every NATO aggression and US military invasion, especially those that concern Russia? Trudeau the tyrant and Freeland the handle of a very cunning strategy here is that, while the disarming Trudeau plays boy tyrant, his deputy PM and FM, Freeland, is surreptitiously pulling the levers of power and influence throughout Ottawa. Just look at the outright financial terrorism that Freeland is already responsible for with regard to financially shutting down the Freedom Convoy. While Trudeau issues the draconian monetary measures and unlawful economic restrictions, Freeland is always standing right beside him as the Minister of Finance authority figure. Watch Chrystia Freeland's very telling body language. It's of paramount importance for all Canadians to understand that with the 2 administrations of Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, from 1968 to 1984, cultural Marxism came to Canada with a vengeance. Who could ever forget the First Lady while child photos of his wife Margaret Trudeau constantly splashed all over the front pages of the tabloid press during their marriage, which almost perfectly paralleled his terms as Prime Minister. Clearly, Communist Pierre Trudeau was installed as PM as a means of conditioning all of Canada to the coming communist regime that would come out of the closet with his son Justin. This is why Justin has constantly presented himself as the most flaming cultural Marxist of any head of state in the world. By irreparably tearing the fabric of Canadian society via state-sponsored cultural Marxism, the resulting chaos, confusion and conflict make it ripe for a full-blown communist takeover. The slow-motion usurpation of the parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy known as Canada just reached a critical stage in 2022. With the advent of the COVID pandemic, Trudeau's hidden masters had manufactured the opportunity to centralize power in Ottawa as never before. That's always the goal of the globalists: empower and fortify an autocratic federal government that then exerts total command and control over the provinces and territories. For instance, the Emergencies Act just invoked by Trudeau creates an opportunity for the federal government of Canada to illegitimately arrogate powers unto itself, which then allows a despotic Trudeau to exercise illicit authority over the citizenry. Demonstrations of this brazen and reckless overreach, which is unheard of in Canadian political history, have already turned many former supporters against the dictator Trudeau. Some of those former supporters are Liberal province premiers and progressive members of Parliament. Contrary to what many may think, and as crazy it might sound, none of this is bad news. You see, where it concerns the rapidly evolving state of Canadian affairs, the worse things get the better. Whereas Canada was selected by the NWO cabal to foist a veiled tyranny on the nation under cover of the COVID pandemic hoax, they unwittingly awakened the sleeping giant. While Canadians are a very liberal-minded people, they're also very traditional and conservative and religious at heart. And their righteous values and freedom-loving spirit have been profoundly assaulted by Trudeau's COVID tyranny. In point of fact, Trudeau has so screwed the pooch where it concerns his political career that he will now have to spend the rest of his life staying out of prison for his unprecedented crime spree against the citizenry. As many Canadian COVID commentators speak and write about Trudeau's heinous crimes against humanity, it will be a wonder if he's able to avoid a one-way trip to the gallows. However, that does not mean that a permanently deposed Justin Trudeau will just drive away from 24 Sussex Drive out of his own volition. This is your Responsibly Canada. Stop bitching about it and do something. It is illegal under international law for Trudeau to implement emergency measures under non-derogation of human rights even in war. Please let the lawyers and truckers know ASAP. RCMP need to arrest Trudeau for a coup d'etat along with everyone involved with voting in the measures as well as associated to the World Economic Forum reset. The people of Canada must drive him out of Ottawa, all the way down to the maximum security prison known as Millhaven Institution. There, he can await his fate for the incomparable treason and treachery he has committed against law-abiding people of Canada. Now it ought to be abundantly clear why Trudeau must go. And Chrystia Freeland must go, too. Action Plan. If ever there was an auspicious time to justifiably remove the truculent traitor Trudeau from his stolen office, that time is right now. The deposition of both Trudeau and Freeland represents just one prong of a very fluid and dynamic multi-pronged strategy to take back the Canadian government from the NWO cabal that has furtively stolen it. It should be obvious that, at the end of the day, the entire Trudeau administration will be forced to ignominiously resign en masse, as they say in Quebec. However, this is only the first and necessary step to reclaim Canadian sovereignty. To wit, a provisional government populated by patriots must be established to usher the nation to a new form of government completely outside of the rubric of the British monarchy and UK government. The ongoing Ottawa protest provides the single best opportunity to throw him and his fellow criminals out of office, for the good of Canada and the world. The best way to accomplish this is for the people of Canada to show up as an overwhelming force of people power in Ottawa to countervail Trudeau's jackbooted mercenary thugs. It's high time to galvanize a massive organically grown, grassroots-driven, people-powered movement of citizens, from across the 10 provinces and territories of Canada, to courageously support the Freedom Convoy protesters in Ottawa. Premier Brian Beckford, email. He wrote Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He is meeting behind the scenes with members of Parliament. Lots going on. Trudeau may be replaced. We do all peacefully and civilly and legally and as per proper procedures. IMO, Trudeau, from what I know, will be replaced in his party. He has damaged the Liberal Party and Canadians, trampled. So I beg Canada to not stop. They must not rest until he is gone. This isn't about a virus or vaccines any longer. He is gone or will be forced as per our rights to not consent to this government. Without consent you have no government. You're all fired. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.